What is up, everybody? Let's see here. We are supposed to have on Andrew Barry today. So make sure he got his invite. Yes. Invite sent. So hopefully he is able to join here without too much issue. Hope everybody's having a good Friday. Come on, Andrew. Let's see. I did remind him. Hopefully he didn't forget. Barry. All right. He's invited. Okay. Let me send him a message too to make sure he got it. All right. Hopefully we can get to Messenger. Having some technical difficulties as usual. Well, I don't know what's going on with this invite. It says it invited him, but there we go. He's here.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Got it. What's up, man? How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. I was trying to make sure I did it right. I'm not technologically savvy, so
Neither am I.
not my forte.
So if I hit this share button, does it propagate it on like my stories or whatever?
Yeah, so after we're done, you should be able to reshare it
Gotcha.
once.
Okay.
And I think you can actually just like use like the repost app too if you want to share the whole entire video like you normally would. Just rip it off my page.
Okay, cool. Gotcha.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Awesome. So we should be good. I was just going to open it up to some open Q&A with everyone today. So guys, anything you want to drop on us that is prep related, off-season related, nutrition training, even if you want to go into how's the weenie? Did you hurt your weenie?
Are you talking about my dog?
Someone asked. Oh, is that your dog?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a dachshund. He's doing good. He's laying on the cold hard floor right now. He prefers the floor over his lush. We have four dog beds for him, and he likes to lay on the floor basically. So he's one of those guys.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. So it was a figurative question. It wasn't. Well, I guess it was kind of a literal question.
Yeah.
You never know, man. You just don't know. And guys, you can, if you want to, you can use the question box. It's down in the right-hand corner. It's a little thing that has the question mark on it. If you click on that, you can put your question in and we're able to see it a little bit easier than on the chat portion. So we're getting some people on now. We're starting to
Nice.
climb here.
Gotcha.
How have you been, man? Doing good? I know you moved, right?
Not yet. No, we bought another place down
Okay.
in Florida. We actually signed on it last Thursday, and we haven't really decided when we're gonna move down there, but we're gonna be splitting time back and forth between Vermont and Florida. We like both areas, and
Sweet.
but yeah, we got a place in Largo, really close to one of my clients, Scott Dennis. So we're gonna, it's gonna be fun because he's gonna do the Tampa Pro next year, and being able to prep him in person. You know, like I know how you do with like some of your athletes. You know, they go to your gym and everything, your barn gym. So we're gonna kind of have like that camp-like atmosphere with us. So.
Yeah. Where's Largo at relative to like Orlando and Tampa?
So you know where Tampa is, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
literally, you go across the bridge. It's 20 to 25 minutes across the bridge, like you're going to Clearwater or St. Petersburg.
Okay. Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so we're like 5 minutes from the water. We have, like I said, you got Clearwater to the north, you got St. Pete to the south. There's just like, you know, a lot going on down there. And you know, I did the math, like, because I like triple pay my mortgage as it is right now up here. So I'm like, okay, if I just go back to paying it regular mortgage and the amount of money we're going to save on income taxes down there, it's only like an extra $400 to $500 a month for the house we bought down there. So it's
I got
kind of
you.
nice to have that, you know.
I got you. Yeah, that's sweet. I'll be there. I'm going to nationals. Hey, pal, come on, get out of here. So I'll be there. I know that's in Orlando though. So
Yeah, yep. I'll be there too. I got as of now, I think I got 9 people doing it. So
nice.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be a busy fucking week for me for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot. I have 3, and 3's enough.
Well,
And
dude, you know, like even when you have 2, it's like, you know, like, and if they're split day shows, like you don't sleep for almost 3 days, considering if like, you know, the women are on Friday, the men are on Saturday. From like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you don't really sleep until Saturday night at midnight or something like that. I get
it depending on like the client and how chill they are and stuff, but that makes a huge difference. It can vary, you know.
I got a mixture here. I got a couple people that literally like they haven't even competed yet, that like ever, but like they're good enough that we're gonna jump them into a qualifier and then they're gonna go and do their first national show. So, which I know, like I would literally, anyone that comes to me saying like, "Hey, I want to go do nationals," I'm
Most
like,
of the
"All
time.
right, let me tell you how this works."
Right.
But you know, like we've been
Right.
on enough of these shows where we know the quality of physique that you need to bring to that stage, not to just say you did it, but to be competitive. So that's kind of
Right.
I've got a few like that right now. So
That's cool though. So someone did drop a question here. They said, "Hey Austin, what is your current training split?" So that's a good one to kind of kick us off. Because right now I mean, most people know by now I am prepping. I think most people kind of gathered that, even though I didn't really like say it. But
well, can I ask you, are you getting ready to do nationals?
Maybe.
All right, so it's one of those things. You're like, let's see how I look. Let's see if I'm ready.
So I haven't even really said that to a lot of people, but I mean, I guess some people watching, it's a consideration. I think that I'm going to do a show that's like 2 to 3 weeks out. I'm a pretty realistic person, but if I'm just looking at myself, like I want to be good enough to where on a good day I could get into like the first call out type of thing as a light heavy.
Yeah.
Because I'll pull down for that if I do it for sure.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I think just based on looking at me, like I think it's realistic.
I do too. That's what I was going to say. Is I absolutely think it's ready to make that move. You know, I think just from the progress from the last time you competed to now, like that's like 3-4 years worth of progress. I think in 2 years really. For
sure. Yeah, three.
Okay, so it's been 3. So yeah, it's definitely you're there.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a consideration. So the guy had asked about training. So honestly, training right now is I'm at 4 days a week, which works really good for me. Now that's take into consideration I work stupid amount of hours. So so when we're talking about like total amount of stress, I have to kind of manage it. So for me, training is really muscle maintenance, right? I go in, I'm not getting weaker. I'm still progressing on some lifts. I'm basically still doing the same type of split I did in the off season, which for me is I preference back. So back gets hit twice a week, arms get hit twice a week, and Everything else is once a week right now. Okay. I might do a higher frequency split in the off season if I have more volume. I'm training at what I would consider like maintenance
Yeah.
volume right now.
Well, and you group several body parts together, right?
Yeah. So for me, frequency, like I will do higher frequency stuff sometimes, like really high frequency, because I'll be doing, 3 or 4 muscle groups in a day type of
Yeah.
thing. Um, so right now, like quads and hamstrings get hit once a week. Um, I take it back. I hit everything. I take that back. I hit everything twice a week except for quads and hamstrings, but I give back more volume. So like on the days that I hit my upper body, I may only do one delt exercise or 2 delt exercises where I'll do, more back volume. And I
Yeah.
basically just split it up to 2 separate days. I have a loading day, which is like straight sets, progressive overload, etc. And then I do a metabolic day, which I pretty much like Scott Stevenson muscle round-esque type stuff, right? The
Well,
only
maybe
thing
people
I
would be
really
interested in learning
changed,
about that between like progressive overload and then like, the metabolic stimulus with multiple sets, more
yeah,
repetitions and kind of just building up the the metabolites in the tissue as different primers of
right.
growth.
Yeah, so one thing and another thing that's cool about that type of work, like cluster sets or even drop sets and stuff like that, is you have a lot of points within that set that are close proximity to failure. So you can, because we talk about like effective reps. So like if you do a set of 15 reps, you're really not getting into that effective rep range until you're maybe at 10,
Yeah.
right? So whereas when I'm doing a muscle round that's maybe like he does 6x4, 6x4. I might do like 5x5 or 6x6, whatever, right? But
Yeah.
I'm getting those last 3 sets, like I've got a good amount of reps that are within pretty close proximity to failure,
Yeah.
right? So it's a lot of effective work. It's for me too, with being leaner and I think as you get more advanced, like when you get up to heavy loads, like safety's obviously a concern. Like for me, right now, unracking barbell squats and doing 5 plates aside for a bunch of sets, it's just fucking CNS toward like it doesn't do anything other than just mutilate my nervous system and I
Yeah.
can't train anything else.
Don't you feel like when you're younger, you have this mechanism where you can just like override the neurological, damage that you're doing in a sense, and the neurological load, because like your inherent desire to, like, we talked about this on the podcast, the Blood, Sweat, and Gear the other day, like just like the mental fortitude of like, all right, I'm going to squat 5 plates. I did 5 plates for 8 last week. I got to get 5 plates for 9 this week. Like I'm going to die before I don't get, you know what I mean? And like, yeah,
Right.
like when we look at it now as coaches, you're like, well, continuously beating yourself to the ground like that time over time after time, like this probably shouldn't yield results. But I feel like when you're younger, there's just that little extra gene or that switch you can hit that allows you to continue progressing on it.
Yeah, and two, you do get to a point though where you start like your form starts changing, even though you don't see it. You're getting extra reps because you're making like micro adjustments in your form.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
your hips slide back a little bit. You're transferring the load to your lower back and your glutes. Yeah.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah.
So for me, like right now, all of my reps are very intent driven. I'm good contractions. I'm everything, like my form's good. I'm feeling everything. So I do some free weight stuff, but I'm doing a lot of like brace movements. So legs, I've been using I went from pendulum squats and like free squatting, and then I went to pendulum squats, and then I went to belt squat, right? As I went into it, and I'll probably just pretty much stick to that through the rest of the way through. Leg extensions, seated leg curl, stuff like that, where I can really lock in and I can get really good focused reps.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, your muscle's not going anywhere as long as you maintain pretty close on load and stuff. It's people get really worried about muscle loss. Maintain performance the best you can, So
I think a bigger driver of muscle that some athletes go through with muscle loss is they automatically start adding all this extra volume and all these different things that they never did to get there, in terms of like, okay, if you've never done a drop set and all of a sudden you start adding them in for, 2 exercises at 8 weeks out, well, you're at that point, you're probably putting yourself into an overtraining zone, right? I mean,
sure.
like for me, it's like I mean, we use little sayings and shit, but like, you know, bring what is it? The training that got you there is the training that's going to finish it out, or something to that aspect. You know, I'm
Yep.
a big believer in that, and I think a lot of it
Yeah.
though. I think people add more volume in as they get leaner because they like how they're looking, so they like to see their muscles engorged. They like to see the
Right.
striations. They're getting tan. They're kind of simulating a more similar to staged look while they're in the gym, while everyone else around them doesn't look nearly as good. So they're like, man, I look fucking amazing. I'm going to keep adding these in, keep adding these in.
I train in a barn with no fucking mirrors at all.
No, I love that, man. It's
Dude,
old school.
I don't, I do have one mirror. It's in the very back corner where it's dark and you look like total shit in that mirror. So like,
Yeah,
I can't,
you know that when you look good in that mirror, you're peeled.
yeah.
Right?
So that's kind of been my training environment for a while. Here's a great question. I think we can both hit on too. Your top three most valuable things you've learned over your coaching career. It's pretty broad, but
I can right
what
off
do
the
you think?
bat.
Go ahead.
Right off the bat, I can think. I mean, I think I've always been kind of this way, but I get reminded. I think, but don't be dogmatic in any type of approach. You know, don't have. You know, all right. When someone comes to you and they're like, "Hey, coach, are you a low carb coach? Are you a high carb coach?" I'm like, I don't know what I am. Like, let's see what you're doing,
Right.
and then let's take
Right.
what you're doing, and maybe I'll clean up some things. Like 9 times out of 10, I think people when I start with them, they're like, you didn't change anything. Like, is this going to be worth my time or my money? And I'm like, listen, I want to actually have eyes on you and have you stick to what you say you're doing for 2 weeks. Let me see what you're doing. And then let's add some tweaks as we go. So I think, you know, getting away from being dogmatic about you need to run this compound or, you know, you need these foods or you need to pull carbs at this time. I think you got to figure out the client and you got to go with that and treat everybody individually.
Yeah, that's a great one. I'll echo that 100%. I do what works for that person. That's the
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
Really, you
Actually,
know.
no, I think you had a good
Um,
post yesterday. You had a good post, or maybe it was a couple days ago. Oh, it was about
the
protocol coaches, right?
situations and yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And that, I remember that because I hit home to me because I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like, you don't give a
yeah,
protocol. Like, maybe you start with some general guidelines, you know, like we all start diets with chicken and rice and stuff on them. But like, then we work with things and we figure out what the client's likes are, what they respond to, et cetera.
sure. I mean, and I'm not saying this is what happens necessarily, but in theory, you may have two clients that start with pretty damn close to the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But where they're at 6 months later is going to be obviously drastically different.
100%.
So, um, let's see. So I would say here's my biggest one. This is probably
Oh, shit, I lost you.
functional health population.
I think I lost you for a second.
I think we're back. We're
Oh,
back.
yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
So, so is really if you're hiring someone, you need to listen to them and you need to trust them and you need to not have too many cooks in the kitchen. This is like I run into this problem a lot, especially like in the people that are in that, you know, like my functional health clients and gut issues and hormones and things like, and bodybuilders can be bad too, is that they're too damn worried about what everyone else is doing and they're too damn worried about what their friends say that, you know, what feedback their friends give them or whatever it might be. What this does is even if you're following the plan, like you have this like abrasiveness with your coach and it's a really tough relationship for us because everyone's stressed out in that relationship, you
Yeah.
know. It's like every week we just don't know what's, you know, we don't know what kind of feedback's going to come in. What does that do? Drive stress, drive stress, drive stress, drive stress. My most successful clients are the people that ask the least amount of questions. So I'm not, and that's not to say that if there's not a problem, you shouldn't address it, but it's saying that if you hire someone, you need to just listen to them. Now that might mean do your research up front, figure out who you want to work with. That's fine. You don't want to blindly follow someone that doesn't have your best interest in mind, but at the same time, there's really no, it's like I give this example. I pay an accountant to do my taxes. Why? Because I don't know shit about taxes.
Yeah.
I ask questions if I absolutely have to. Otherwise, like do your job. You
Yeah.
know?
Oh, 100%, 100%. It kind of reminds me, like, and I don't know how you deal with this in these days, but like, when you get with a client and like I tell a lot of people that are going to hire me, I'm like, go vet me. Like, please, like, talk to people on my page, talk to people, like,
Sure,
fill
fine.
out a story, find out what I'm about. So this person actually talked to one of my clients who I helped with getting her hormones back in line, right? And getting her back into a productive state where she could diet again and have a successful contest season. And she said, hey, look, it's going to get worse before it gets better. You're going to look worse before you start looking better again. It's going to be a 3, maybe a 5, a 6-month process. And basically laid out exactly what I would have said. The person hired me. Like 3 weeks in, they started questioning everything I was doing. And I even like brought it back because I do Loom videos now. And I go, please watch that Loom video again, where I like literally describe step by step, this is what we're going to kind of expect. This is how long it's going to take. You're going to probably look a little worse before you're looking better. We're focusing on how you feel and how your digestion's going and all those other variables. And then she sends me the second week, like a picture of her like edited from a gym photo shoot that she did. And she's like, why am I looking worse than this picture? And I'm like, and she had all these questions and things that so-and-so was doing this. And
Right.
so-and-so. I'm like, look, this is real simple. Like, sounds like you got all the answers. You got it figured out. Like, here's your money back. Like, we're good.
There you go.
Please don't email me anymore. And to that point, it's like, I think both of us and plenty of great coaches have a body of work out there at this point that we know what we're doing, So it's like, you need to just buy into the system. It's the same thing. Like, you ever played football? Coaches first day, they're like, you need to buy into the system. Like, you guys need to be yes men. You guys need to fall in line. You might not agree with it, but you need to just fall. 9 times out of 10, when the players on the team do that, the team has a successful season. Simple as that.
Yeah. And you have to remember that as a coach, we're emotionally invested in you in the sense that we want you to do good, but we're the objective party here.
Yeah.
Like, you got to remember that. So
yeah, exactly.
Someone else asked, and there's a million things I could probably say that I've learned. I mean, shit, dude. I thought it's one of those things where every like 2 or 3 years, I realized that 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't really know that much.
I would say every year I'm like, wow, do I even know?
Every year.
Do I even know what I'm doing at this point with like all the, the science
Right.
advances, or other coaches bring up good topics on things for discussion or whatever, or you see a new issue that you just never dealt with before, whether it's, an enzyme deficiency or a hormone issue or something. And then you go down a rabbit hole and you learn everything you can about that. And you're like, I had no fucking clue that that's how that worked,
It took me a really long time to get past that imposter syndrome of, and of course there's still times where I question things, but it probably took me up until at least a couple years ago, 10 years of coaching, where I'm like, I feel good about everything I'm saying to people.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's probably appropriate for like anybody that's in, I'm not just coaching, but anybody that's in, a field where they start to gain some success and notoriety, right? I mean, I have to think, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but other professionals in other fields must be like, man, do I even know what I'm doing here? Like some genetic physicist who wins a Nobel Prize probably is like, for 10 years, probably doesn't realize, wow, I really deserve that, all the research.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Someone asked, let's see. Oh, who do you think front runners for nationals?
Front runners for nationals. I mean, here's the thing.
There's going to be some carryover from North Americans, I'm sure, but
yeah.
I know. Yeah, that's true. I couldn't, the women's classes, I would have a difficult time commenting on, to be honest. Men's, I know a few carryovers. I have 2 guys. One might do it. The other one I know is doing it. He should do really well as a super heavy. There's another super heavy that I think everyone knows that's in it right now. That's probably.
Who are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about what's his name's guy? Dom's guy.
I would have to.
He could have probably done North Americans and placed in that top 3, even not being completely peeled.
I would have to. You know what? The funny thing is, he has so much muscle that I thought he was like 5'5", but he's 5'9".
Oh, really? Oh, that changed. Wow. I thought he was really short too. I thought he was like, because he looks like he's that big. Middleweight, right? He looks like
he's that big.
Just the height size, but I guess his legs and everything are just that big, huh? Jesus.
So I'd have to. I'd have to venture to say that that would be there. He would be on there, that list. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be some carryover. I know there's a few guys like in the men's and stuff that are gonna come over from North Americans. So probably take all of your top five from North Americans, throw them in your predictions, and then add a couple.
Yeah,
Really?
I agree. And plus, we see it every year though, where the guy who we think is going to win the overall doesn't even make it to his qualifier show, bags out. I can think of what's his name, Silverback there for like years. Everyone's been like, oh, that guy's winning whatever overall, whatever pro qualifier he does. And it seems like every year he finds a way to back out like at 2 weeks out. So you just never know
Yeah.
until the guys are all there on stage,
Yeah. And plus when you start another question is what happens to these guys when they're hitting USAs, then North Americans, then nationals? Like
Well,
there's going to be a deterioration point eventually.
Well, actually, I can tell you what, with a little bit of experience of doing that, because I did it with Nate Spear twice, right? And actually, we did it basically 3 times if you count from nationals into the Boston Pro Show. And you got to know the athlete, and you got to know mentally that they're 100% in the game. B, you got to you got to take care of their health. So, in a situation where the next qualifier or the next pro show is 12 weeks away, I think I have a pretty good system down where we clean out very quickly, like right after the show,
Yep.
just a little bit higher than TRT test levels, but we pull all orals, any of the DHTs. We do a deload phase. We do a detox with I like to use the Metapure and some other supplements. And we probably run that for about 3 weeks. And then we kind of treat it like an 8 or 9 week prep. And we don't add the gear back in until like 4, maybe 5 weeks out. And honestly, you can feed the athlete up nicely. You can see a nice response with their adrenals. You can see a nice response with their sleep, with their training. Everything starts to feel good again. So you're not really keeping them in that bone dry, hard condition, but you're not letting them get fat either.
Right. Like the super that I have doing it, he did North Americans. So like right off the rip, he had some, like I could tell like some gut distension, some other things. So we went in, immediately cleaned that up.
Yeah.
Immediately basically was brought down to basically dosages that you're mentioning here. Within 3 weeks, he'd already looked better than he did at North Americans. Why? Because he's functioning better.
I was just going to say, yeah, the stress is gone now. Like
feeding him.
Yep.
We're feeding him, so I mean the dude dropped like 12 pounds in like a week. I'm like, oh, there we go. Now we've got it going. So like now let's get some food back in.
Yeah.
And so it's obviously variable. Now if they did a show prior and they were way off, then of course, well, we're just going to keep dieting, maybe potentially,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if they got second at their class at North Americans and they were already fucking peeled, then we have to at least reset a little bit.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to like, okay, why did you get second or third? Like, are you just missing a body part that like they're not going to reward you until you fix that? Was your conditioning off? Did you miss your peak?
Yeah.
Did something go wrong with like the water situation, whatever? I think, the reason why, and again, that's why I say go back to like, you got to really know your athlete and really know the person really well, like their mindset. Are they in a good place to do it? Or did they literally get fired from their job the week before their girlfriend left them? And you know what I mean? Like, and it's just going to be worse because now they're out of money. They don't know how they're going to get to the show. Like, you know what I mean? You just got to know your athlete in the situation, really.
Yeah. And sometimes chalk it up and improve and don't, but I do understand that sometimes for a lot of people, national shows are right place at the right time and a lot of things have to fall into place. So you have to kind of play as many as you can sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
All
like,
right.
For instance, that kid Cole, he got second at North Americans Junior guy, and he got
third at USA's, I think.
Yeah, and honestly, he's getting in because his condition has been spot on both times. I mean, he's kind of tall for a super. I mean, like myself, like he's kind of tall, a little bit on the lankier side, but that condition he's bringing, and he hasn't been against many guys that just have like that it shape, that the judges are looking for that really translates to a pro level when they're in condition. So like you said, the right place, right show, right time. It could be a situation where there's no beautiful quote unquote physiques in the show in shape, and he could sneak by somebody and absolutely win a pro card.
For sure. Oh yeah. I mean, it's a matter of time, I would assume.
Oh yeah.
Has to be. All right, let's see here. Oh, that's the first one. All right, let me scroll down. Hey, we got some chats in here, so let's see. Uh, Excited for you, Austin. Just roll with what comes. Oh, thank you. Let's see. Uh, a bunch of people. Okay, what is this one? Saved for later. Yeah, I will save this for later, so I will repost it. Man, we got a bunch of chats. Holy shit. Okay. All right, here's one. Let's see. Someone asked about carb cycling. Thoughts on that? That's pretty broad. I mean, we can talk about it.
I mean, whether it's a carb cycle, in my opinion, whether it's a carb cycle or, I mean, at some point you're trying to get the athlete flat enough so they're burning body fat from a deficit of calories. And then at the same time, at some point, you need to put the calories, specifically carbohydrates, back in to reset leptin levels, get their thyroid, their thyroid going again, their metabolism,
Yep.
and then start the cycle over again. So like, I mean, every diet in a sense is a carb cycle, very rarely does anyone start a diet on day one and it's the same diet when they finish the contest, right? Like at some point you need to incorporate refeeds, you need to incorporate some type of, and all of them are basically cycling carbohydrates. Why? Carbohydrates tend to impact leptin levels more than mixed calorie meals.
Yeah, and I would venture to say that your carb cycling from a day-to-day basis, like training to non-training days and stuff, is probably way less important than we're talking about like actual refeeding and things of that nature. So there's a lot of ways. There's a million ways you can do it. You know, clear down to super specific intra-workout peri window timing, like a lot of different ways. But the biggest thing is really understanding calorie cycling, like understanding that these, huge deficits for long periods of time, the adaptations that are going to occur, and that we have to try to reverse them. I would also probably say that you do need to get, people are going to be flat at points and maybe more so in some people than others, but I know a lot of people that have a difficult time when they're like in this perma-flat stage where they've been flat for too long.
Yeah.
They're kind of difficult to fill out. Like that one day of loading them doesn't really yield the look that you want. I tell you, man, for me, I really try anymore, especially in my bigger guys that need, like, there's a lot of space that you have to fill out. I really try to avoid any super extreme loading if I can, and I would rather spread it out. Like I'd rather just have them ready and just kind of coast in.
Oh, you're talking about like 2 weeks out, peaking, bringing them to the day of the show.
Even a week. A week.
Oh, same here. Honestly, like I want people to look literally the same way on the show day as they did the previous Saturday. Like maybe a little drier, but honestly, like the least amount of variables I can do with somebody, then we did our job perfectly. You know what I mean?
Right. Like for like my guy at North Americans, we tapered water a little bit, but he had water in the whole time.
Yeah. Explain, because like sometimes I still get people like saying like, "Hey, are we pulling my water Thursday night?" And I'm like, "Your show's set. What are you talking about?" And for me, like it might be something like, "All right, you're typically doing 7 liters. We're going to do 6 liters today." But it's all based off what we're looking at and what we're seeing, right? Like for me, I have a process the last couple of days of the show where I want people to eat their meal, wait about an hour and a half, 2 hours, do 2 rounds of posing, and then send me pictures of that second round. Note their weight. And once I determine like where that body weight looks the best, and basically what's happening with their body weight throughout the day, right?
Stay there.
If someone's body weight is tanking down throughout the day, it's like, oh shit, your metabolism is going to overdrive. We need to bump the food. It's probably add in some healthy fats in there too. But if someone's body weight is staying the same, like meal to meal, it's like, we're not changing anything. We're eating the same things. We're doing the same amount of water between meals. We're just maintaining this look.
For him, it was funny. For him, we actually we pretty much did that all the way up. And the day of the show, I just asked him, I said, "What does your pee look like? How often are you peeing?" And we maintained hydration just based on that and how he looked. And I was like, okay, we're starting to, we're starting to get a little dehydrated. Let's bump a little bit back in.
Yeah.
And it basically stayed literally the same all day. Morning was the same, night was the same. It was the same.
Isn't it funny that like sometimes like people think there's going to be some like crazy exact tool that we're using to figure it out, but it's like literally you're using the P color as the guy as the gauge as to how much more water we need to put in or take out. And I do stuff like
Yeah.
that too. I think that's great.
Like P color, can you get a pump?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like those are the markers. Like the posing is a great one. How do you feel when you pose? Do you feel connected to the muscle? Like, are you feeling the muscle getting fuller, tighter, etc.? No. Okay, maybe you're a little flat.
Yeah. See, the problem is though, is that like you need to have someone that has like a good couple shows under their belt and understands what the pump actually is. Because like sometimes you got like a first timer and you're like, well, do you feel pumped? You know, how when you're flexing, like, well, what does it mean? Like when I flex my muscles, like what am I supposed to feel? And I'm like, all right, when you go to the gym and like you do like 1 or 2 sets of arms and like you can flex your arm and there's new blood in there. Like, are you feeling that? Do you feel like the tissue is sitting up against the skin versus it just kind of like withering there? So sometimes you gotta explain it to like first and second timers.
And a lot of people probably mistake fullness, like food fullness issues, with water issues. Like
that's a good point.
They think they need more food when really it's probably more of a water issue. Like, listen, if you've loaded fucking million grams of carbohydrates and you're flat in the morning of the show, it's not a food issue.
Yeah.
It
brings up another good point too, is that another big reason why you want to have the athlete looking like the same 1 week out is they know what it feels like to have food in their stomach at that level. So when they get on stage, they have the same abdominal control that they would, as if they woke up out of bed flat. That I think that's a major fact. And I think you pointed out that too, about a lot of the guys, A, digestive issues, but B, maybe overfilling or trying to eat more to overcome thinking that they were flat and then getting on stage and having midsections that looked kind of Palumbo-ish kind of thing.
Right. And I can say, like, if you think that you're going to get up, you have a 8 a.m. prejudging, you think you're going to get up and fix a food issue in the morning, it's not going to happen. You're going to be, it's just going to sit in your gut.
Well, you're going to look worse, like plain and simple.
100%.
Like, you're going to be flat up here and you're going to be full in your midsection. Like that's the opposite of what we're trying to get, guys.
Right. Somebody asked importance, again, this is kind of another broad question, but ask about the importance of intra-workout drinks. So, all right, man. So there's a lot of context to that.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not even, so let's not even talk about like using maybe exogenous insulin or something where you would want a carbohydrate there, but maybe just in general. For me, they're helpful for a few reasons. One, they're easy to digest. So it's high molecular weight carbs. They can, especially like off season, it's an easy place to put calories, right? As long as you are using an amount that digests good with you. Two, in prep, if it helps you with training performance, then by all means. Like that's the thing, is like, does it help you? Are you eating carbohydrates pre-workout? Are you like how much glycogen do you have to begin with? That type of thing. So I think it's kind of a matter of whether or not it really helps you or not. For some people, I don't really care either way. For others, I think it's absolutely helpful. How much training volume are you doing? Are you doing a low volume training?
If you're doing like 4 working sets, you're not going to push 150 grams of cyclic dextrin. And I agree with you. I tend more now I've gotten a lot out of intra-workout, especially in my younger years. As I get older, I find that my stomach, my digestive system doesn't really like to have a lot of volume in general, even if it's a highly branched, cyclic dextrin or a high molecular weight carbohydrate. So I'm actually doing way less than I used to. And I think that's just an age thing, because I want to eat less as it is as I get older anyway.
Sure.
You cross over at some point in your late 20s to 30s where, you're just like, man, I like feeling hungry, or I like feeling my stomach flat all day versus, bloated and full. But I do think the intra-workout can hurt you, specifically in the off season, when let's say you're someone that's eating 7 meals a day. Well, you're already spacing your meals out 2 hours at a time. So you're barely just maybe even finish. You might not even finish digesting your pre-workout meal. And then you're throwing another meal on top of it, the intra. No matter, there's no amount of insulin, I think, that can override driving glucose into the cell when food is just sitting in your stomach, water's going to your gut. So I think there's got to be a balance there. And I don't think you need to instantly jump to like some magically high number. Like, I'm not afraid to say, okay, let's do 20 grams of cyclic dextrin and let's titrate up, 10 or 15 milligrams at a time till we find a point where I'm kind of not having as good of a workout now.
Right. Yeah, definitely don't want to be bogged down. Like how soon before your training are you eating, that type of thing. Like that certainly makes a difference. What's your meal frequency? Yeah, if you're eating 7 meals a day, that shit's overlapping. I don't care what you do. Like, it's overlapping.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Exactly. And the other thing I look back on is that, look, guys were putting on muscle well before intra-workout ever existed, right? Before it was
for sure.
Before it was a theme or a major pillar in the bodybuilding world. So can you absolutely build muscle without it? Yeah, 100%. All the guys in the 90s and 2000s, I don't think they even drank amino acids for the most part. I don't remember reading about like Ronnie Coleman making sure that he had the precise amount of amino acids and cyclic dextrin in his system. And obviously he's a genetic outlier, but I'm talking also more the general community of people, guys that I knew that were muscular and big. They drink water,
Right.
One guy drank coffee, but that was about it,
So I'll tell you what I've been doing lately. And I still have a little ways to go, but I'm getting to that leanness. So now it's kind of cool because I'm getting to that leanness point where I am flat more often, but I'm really insulin sensitive, right? So it's like you get pumped even when you're flat type of thing, But I'll do amino acids, but instead of carbohydrates, I've been doing all glycerol in my shakes. I get phenomenal pumps every session, no matter what. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm close to a refeed, away from refeed, doesn't really matter. I've been getting really good pumps during training, even when pretty depleted. So that's been a little experiment, but I'm just using like the food grade vegetable glycerin in like the big fucking jug.
Really?
But I'm doing like 25 grams at a time.
And no digestive issues, no.
So I ramped it up. I ramped it up to where I'm like, okay, I feel fine here. So like Hydromax glycerol, where you would get in a lot of the nicer pre-workouts and stuff, is obviously going to be a lot lower amount.
Yeah.
But this is the cheap food grade, vegetable glycerin, and it's a little sweet. So, I just mix it up to where it tastes good, and then I get great pumps every time. I mean, I'm talking like crippling huge pumps from using it.
Back in the day, like when I did my first show in 2001, we learned about like not the vegetable glycerin, but what was it called before Hydromax? Dante put it out. It was
I'm trying to think of what
glycerol monostearate.
Yeah,
that's what it was, right? And we would use that actually in our like right before going on stage, like maybe an hour, 45 minutes before going on stage. I can't say it was all that beneficial, but I also can't say that I can't remember exactly what else I was doing that might have, messed that little experiment up. But I don't know. Have you ever used it with anyone before getting on stage, or is this something you're thinking about?
No. So I do that with most of like women. I don't care so much generally, depending on their division.
Yeah.
Men, I like to do it. I like to do like sodium and some kind of like volumizing. Sometimes I'll use like a volumizing pre-workout that I know digests good with them.
Yeah.
So maybe whatever company that we're using, or I can just use straight glycerol. So like a little bit of carb, a little bit of glycerol, sodium, water.
Yeah.
Pump. And there's a bunch of other factors. I mean, obviously, like if you're flat as a board and you have no glycogen, like it's not going to matter probably.
Yeah. I think that
you're not going to get
the issue for me. Like, I didn't understand. I mean, I kind of understood nutrition, but I didn't understand nutrition. You know what I mean? Like, I got into pretty good shape just by starving myself, and then
you can.
And I'm one of those people, though, like you mentioned, like when you get into the hole, like it takes me like a good 2 weeks to get out of. That flat peeled, like but you start to look like you're really going backwards in terms of conditioning, that's when I know,
Right.
like, oh shit, like you're dieting too hard, you know?
Yeah.
Like actually in 2020, I did that before I hooked up with John for my universe prep that year, I did a show before that. I did the Chicago Pro Amateur before that. And like, you know, I think maybe I saw you at Junior USA's that year or something, but like, maybe one of the
Yeah.
shows, but like I started dieting, like it was during the COVID year, right? So I'm like, all right, I need something to do because I need something to do. And all my clients were still doing shows around the country. So I'm like, I'm going to diet with them, you know, and I'm just going to get in shape. And if I do a show, I'll do a show. But I ended up dieting so hard. And you know how when you're sometimes your own coach, you can really have the blinders on in just that quest to need to push harder, need to do more. But I sent my pictures to John at like maybe 5 weeks out from the show I was going to do. And he's like, yeah, I can tell you're fucking peeled, but where did all your muscle go? You know, like it was one of those, like, you're deep in the hole. So what we did though was I was eating like, I think I whittled myself down to 50 grams of carbs a day. And I just wanted to see how hard I could diet and maybe an hour and a half of cardio or something. And he's like, all right, no cardio. We're going to bump your carbs to 700 and we're going to throw in a bottle of Serostim a day. And I'll tell you what, man, like that was the best I ever felt in my life. Like literally volumizing in like a pound or 2 pounds up every single day and just looking better and harder all along the way. Like the feeling of that was just amazing. I don't even know how I got on that story, or how I was going to loop it back into
Yeah.
what we were talking about, but yeah.
I mean, I know for sure for me, I tend to have to diet pretty hard to get all the way there. My most successful looks, I mean, I always get good shape, but like my best looks is from eating into the show every time. Like, and it doesn't have to, it's not like I'm eating like 6 weeks into the show. I'm talking like I wasn't depleted up to the very last second. You know what I mean?
There's a big
That
difference.
type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Phil Viz says, can you imagine how sensitive you were? Yeah, 100%, dude. You're like, you were like, it's funny because I know that, I've had like people that get super, super sensitive and will do these, you know, big refeeds and stuff. And they're like, hey, can we use insulin? I'm like, all right, because there's the large amount of carbs. We're talking like 1 IU per like 50 grams of carbs, which is in the off season wouldn't do dick.
Nothing. Yeah.
Right.
You can sleep on it.
And they're like, I go hypo. Like, yeah, you know, sensitivity is just astronomically high. You know,
and speaking of insulin sensitivity, me and Phil, like, it was during that prep that we were on the phone one time, and I'm like, you know, Rachel, I'd driven home from the gym. Rachel had already gone in the house. I'm still sitting in the garage talking to Phil on the phone. I'm like, 20 minutes go by, and I'm like, all right, Phil, I got to go in the house right now. Like, I think I'm about 46 right now, 46 on my glucose. And he's like, yeah, right. He's like, so I go in the house and I tested him. It was literally 46 or something like that on the dot. We kind of joke around about how, and I actually try to tell this to clients. I'm like, hey, if you feel hypo, immediately go check. Because like, I want you to start to associate what that feels like with that number. You know what I mean? It's a decent gauge for when you're using insulin and when you don't have your glucometer. You can say, okay, I know what 70 feels like. I know what 50 feels like. I know what 30 feels like if you get that low. You know what I mean? I do think it's good to build that association when you're using insulin.
Yeah, I know. I'm like I said, depending on how hard you have to diet and how low your food gets and stuff, it'll vary. For me, it gets so crazy how sensitive I get because there's just like I know I did. There was a point in my last prep towards the end. It was like one of my last refeeds, maybe like 2 weeks out or something. I don't know. And I had done 2 days in a row of like 1,000 grams of carbs both days, and my glucose moved like 2 points.
Yeah,
the whole time.
That's sensitive, folks. That's super sensitive.
Oh yeah, it was stupid. I'm like, dude. My glucose isn't even fucking moving.
Isn't it funny though? Like, okay, so in prep, 1,000 grams of carbs 2 days in a row goes down so easy, and it actually makes you more hungry for like the next 3 days.
For sure.
In the off season, if someone's doing 800 grams of carbs a day, and you're like, all right, I need you to do 1,000 for 2 days, you're like, oh,
I don't want to eat for a month.
Yeah, how am I going to do this first? Like, how am I going to actually fit an extra 200 grams? I'm going to drink fruit juice and fucking candy.
Yeah. I mean, you have you're getting there's a lot that's going on though. Like you said before, your leptin levels are going up, your thyroid hormone conversion's going up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that happening in the off season. Your glycogen's already full.
Yeah.
You're already not hungry.
Yeah.
Your thyroid's already fine. Your leptin's already through the fucking roof in the off season.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, you want your leptin to go down. You're like,
Yeah,
can you just
exactly.
slow, can like my metabolism slow down for a little bit? You know?
No, 100%. Because you have to bring, if I remember correctly, you have to bring your food sky high, and then to get in shape, you have to bring it fairly low. Yeah, yeah. I'm the same way, man. Like, you know, it's not a big deal to do 800, 900 grams of carbs in the off season. And obviously I'm a little bit bigger, but, you know, but then on the flip side, you know, it gets down there to where, you know, you could pull 75 grams of carbs and 3 days later, not my scale's not moving. And then we pull another 75 grams of carbs and scale's not really moving. And it's like, all right, let's start dieting. And next thing you know, you're down to 200 grams of carbs, and then you're doing intra only, and you're doing, you know, it can get out of control pretty quickly for some people.
Do you have a sports background? Did you play any sports in high school, college? What did you play?
Yeah, I played football, basketball, and I threw the shot put and track, and then I played college ball for a couple of years.
Okay. I'm just curious because I'm always, see, I was a wrestler and had that background of like weight restriction and stuff too. So it's like, and I noticed this too in people, wrestlers, fighters, people that ran like distance, cross country, stuff like that. A lot of epigenetic changes that probably stick with them for kind of a long time. Right. And so, because for me, like we all know that at this point, based on just anecdotal evidence and science, that people create metabolic adaptations, they diet too much, et cetera, et cetera. But what about the people like myself that ate 7,000 calories for 3 years from my last show?
Yeah.
Why do I still have
like, why
that
hasn't
type
the
of
epigenetic factor swung the other way at this point for you to where, I can get lean eating 450 grams of carbs a day and doing 5 minutes of cardio versus an hour and a half? Yeah, I know. I've always, you know, I learned about epigenetics in high school during one of our like biology classes. I'm like, wait, no, like what you do can actually impact your genetics or your phenotypic expression. I'm like, no way. And then I started learning more, but then, like, you know, being where we are now and like seeing so many body types, like some things still just kind of really throw you for a loop, right? Like that example you just gave. Absolutely.
Yep. There's and there's a lot of factors to that. Your past history, also genetic inheritances from like ethnicity. There's not a lot of good information. I've dug into it. There's a little bit. It's kind of shaky. It's kind of hippie-ish, but there's a little bit of it out there. But there's certainly something to be said about even like ethnicity. We notice. Look at like African American population. Some of these dudes that you can fucking starve to death and don't lose any tissue or hardly lose any weight.
But on the same flip side, like, you know, just literally the skin thickness, you know, and I think we probably all figured out that maybe it has to do with the higher levels of growth hormone and the collagen patterning, but still, like, or even like the climate that you're in. Like, some people do better
100%.
dieting in a certain climate versus other population groups based off ethnicity. Yeah, there's a lot of crazy cool stuff out there. Some of it might be, you know, more of a hypothesis, but you kind of start to see patterns and you're like, well, that does kind of make sense.
Yeah. And of course, we have pretty much zero control over any of it because we live where we live and we have what we have. So it's kind of, but it is interesting.
I think
nonetheless.
So. Absolutely.
Let's see. We'll hit a couple more here before we jump off. Let's see. Like someone said, had some friends, have 2 kids, one conceived when they were fat, one conceived when they were peeled. First one had the highest percentage of body weight as a child. Yeah, so like they had like a fat parent had the overweight kid, et cetera, you know?
Well, I think that goes back even beyond their parents' genetics, right? Like, I think it goes back to their parents' parents and their parents' parents and their parents' parents, like throughout that line of the genetic expression, probably.
Yeah, I mean, and there's, you know, you'd mentioned like collagen, for example, or you mentioned like there's a lot of things we see this in Olympic athletes. There was kind of that stink a while ago about a lot of these like Olympic athletes with these really high androgen levels. They weren't taking anything. They just that's just what they had.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean,
now granted, some of them were, but
yeah. Well, it's like the genetic elite level of bodybuilding. It's the same thing. Like you don't just wake up. Like we all know at this point, right? I hope everyone knows at this point that becoming a really good professional bodybuilder isn't just a matter of hard work and eating your meals and doing your training. Like there's a major genetic component. You just literally express muscle tissue better than the average person. You could, I mean, a lot of the pros I know work not nearly as hard as, you know, decent amateurs that will never make it past the regional level, but they just have that genetic response where they have a heightened response to drugs, a heightened response to training, heightened response to nutrition, and it gets them to where they want to go.
yeah. And, you know, you get like Dr. Scott Stevenson's talked about that stuff a lot too, talked about like inter-individuality of people. And it's with everything. How, like, I take an aspirin and you take an aspirin. Well, we might metabolize that aspirin at a different rate. A different amount of it actually is going to bind and give us the effect that we want. So that's literally that's every drug that you put in your body. That's every stimulus that you give your body. You know, like Phil Heath, like I can do the same thing as Phil Heath. He's going to get 10 times the result.
Yeah.
Every time.
You can follow your diet 100% out of the year. He could follow his diet 70% of the year. Just that 30% before the Olympia, when he follows it, he's going to look like, you know, Mr. Saturday Night, and you're going to be looking, you know, it's just that
Whatever. Same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's take one more question if anyone has one, and then we'll wrap it up. I need to go eat and need to get a haircut today. I'm getting lazy, you know, because I'm tired.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look at all that gray, dude.
Well, dude, the key to the gray is you actually got to keep it short enough that you don't really see it expressed.
You can't see it much. Yep.
Yeah. But then, you know what? I'm not going to lie. I also use that Just for Men darkening. I'm trying this out. For the last 4 weeks, I've been trying just on the sides because my top doesn't really get gray, but the sides do.
Right.
So I've really just been like rubbing it into the sides as much as I can. But you got to keep it short. That way the grays don't come out.
It helps.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How old are you?
I'm 32 this month, so I'm still young.
Yeah, yeah.
I got time.
Yeah, you got
Masters Nationals, dude. I got a few years.
Yep. It's funny, Masters Nationals and North Americans Nationals, like, and all those Masters like Universe, it does vary from year to year in terms of the quality of talent. The women's side, I think, are always really good. The women are always hard as nails. I think a lot of them look better in some cases in terms of conditioning aspect than the open girls. But men, I find, like honestly, I think I got lucky with, you know, the year I did it. I don't think I had a lot of competition, honestly. And that's me saying, like, I don't think I'm that great. I'm saying that, or I'm saying, like, I've seen other classes where it's like, oh shit, man, would I even make top 5 at that one? You know?
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of people talk about the conditioning in the Masters, and honestly, I think that's overplayed a lot because there are a lot of guys that do look really good, but if you look at just purely depth, it's still open. I mean, open qualifiers are still better.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying
way
absolutely better. Open qualifiers are absolutely
way better. Like it's honestly like not even close.
No, not even. No, I mean, because well, you take in the fact that, you know, in the open, most guys don't have, say, like a torn pec, or they haven't torn a tricep, or they don't have missing body parts. So everything still looks symmetrical and just put together really well. They're still on the upswing in terms of gaining muscle tissue, where usually in the Masters classes, guys are starting to lose their legs a little bit. They might be flattening out in the chest regions. So there's tons of variability there. Absolutely.
All right, here's a good question we can finish out on too. At the national level, do you feel they're varying the look, what they're looking for? Seems bikini varies a lot depending on the show. Well,
all right. Here's the thing. People think judging is like this particular criteria, whatever class you're in. And judging is so simple. It's literally when they come out on stage, what your eyes are drawn to. Like which one you're like, man, I'm basing everybody off that person. Now, yeah, we have the criteria of conditioning, symmetry, musculature, posing, all those different variables, but your brain knows what it wants. You know what I mean? It's the same way, like you see a beautiful woman, you might like brunettes over blondes or vice versa. But the thing is that the majority like the one that they put in the middle. and they base everyone else around that person. You know, I think it's because people be like, well, my side chest is better than his side chest. And it's like, okay, maybe, but like usually judging is done for the most part, at least at the regional levels. It's done when the athletes come right on stage before they even hit the front relax. You can have a pretty good idea on who's going to be winning that class. It's just that simple.
Yeah. And it's also like, how do you compare next to the other people that are on stage, right? Because it's like if you're maybe you have a lot of guys that are, you know, that are super round and full, and you're really peeled. Like maybe you'll compare favorably because you're a lot different, or maybe you won't,
or maybe
you
the
know?
other way. Yeah, absolutely.
And she asked about bikinis specifically, but the thing with that is, there's, I don't care what anyone says, but there's a variable of other aesthetics that go into that, because like there's so much similarity that there's no way that they're not looking at some other cosmetic, factors, right?
Absolutely.
And it's really probably boiling down to just a genetic difference at these shows. Like, who we're talking, like pelvic girdle, shoulder girdle, stuff that you literally have no control over, because ultimately, like, the size and shapes of the glutes are probably all about the same at that and the top 5.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, at that point, it's really minute details, and I'll tell you what makes a huge difference for a lot of these girls is, if there's 30 girls in your class, you have to nail your presentation and really kind of like wow them at the beginning, because if not, you're going to get lost. That's what I think. Because at a regional show, if you're really good and you're better than everyone else, like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're going to get picked regardless. It doesn't fucking matter. But at a national show, everyone looks the same. If you go out and you stumble over your heels and you don't hit your glute shot and all this, like, doesn't matter. You're done. It's over.
Well, like, one thing I see that automatically disqualifies a lot of good physiques is if they rush their routines in bikini. Like, they look like that's their first national show and that they haven't practiced in front of a lot of people a number of times. That preparation, that's what I tell all the girls, like, get used to, like, get people in your gym just to sit there and watch you while you practice your routine. Like, get used to eyes on you, and just so you don't stumble when you go into your back shot or when you're moving. The other thing I would say is this: there's something to be said about familiarity. And what I mean is, I try to talk the girls into start out with junior USAs, and then, okay, you get 5, 6, go on to junior nationals. Maybe we need to tighten you up a little bit, maybe, but there's just something to be said about Sandy and the other judges seeing you come back again and again, maybe, especially if you change the one thing that they told you to change, right? If they said, hey, I want your glutes to be a little bit tighter. Okay. Well, now at the same time, when you do that, your upper body is probably going to get a little bit leaner too, but at least you're doing what they said, you know? And I think if you're a girl and you're willing to run the distance, you have a much better shot at doing a pro card than literally just waiting until nationals and showing up.
Yeah. It's a lot different. It's different than men, for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I've had several girls win pro cards by starting out and just running the gamut, not going all 5 national shows, but like, okay, pick one of the shows where you're going to be able to do another show in a month and then another pro qualifier a month later. And it pays off. I'm telling you, it pays off.
Yeah, for sure. Sweet, dude. Well, we'll wrap it up there. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for the questions, everybody. I will reshare this so you'll be able to find it. And then, Andrew, you can reshare it too once I put it up. I'll tag you so you can see it.
Awesome.
But I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Cool,
likewise.
buddy. I'll see you later.
We'll see you.